Thank you for viewing this YouTube archive of a Conscious Consumer Network broadcast. Please feel free to share it far and wide. Check out our weekly broadcast guide for weekly updates on scheduled broadcasts. Help keep us on the air by contributing to our network support fund. You can follow us on Facebook and Twitter or get in touch via email. We thank you for supporting free and independent media.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Mel Ve, and this is Conscious Consumer Network Live. And the time is 9 p.m. GMT and 10 p.m. local time on January 28th, I believe. January 28th, 2016. My word, it's already end of January. Can you believe how fast month has gone? Wow. Well, we've been doing a lot of stuff here on Conscious Consumer Network, and even behind the scenes, we've been rather busy. So I prepared a wonderful evening of conscious communities for you all. So let me tell you a little bit about what we're going to be having a look at tonight. From the first episode of Conscious Communities, we follow on with a few pictures which tell a little bit more of the story of the Moroccan Center, the community center that's been set up by Hope Moore and Fix World Foundation. So Hope has basically been getting these pictures in from the people who've been using the community center, and they've been, since it's opened the last 2 weeks, all the ladies have been going in there and doing things, and she hadn't even known until they started sending her pictures, and wow, it really is heartwarming to see. So we started tonight's show with a little look at some of the photographs that have been coming in from the Community Centre in Morocco, which, I tell you what, well done, Hope. That is an amazing community outreach initiative. Talk about a conscious community. Following on from that, we're going to be having a look at a short interview that I did with Lainey Liberty, who's currently in Mexico setting up for one of her Project World School retreats. Tell you something, I would love to go hook up with Lainey someday and see how she runs these retreats for young children. These lovely teens that are homeschoolers, world schoolers, self-directed learners come from all over the world and join Lainey and her son Miro in these temporary learning communities where they engage in immersive, self-directed experiential learning. And Lainey talks to us a little bit about how kids can engage in creating conscious communities through having engaged in a Project World School interactive community experience. Following on from that, we have an interview with a lady called Candy Williams. And Candy speaks to us about food freedom, permaculture, farming, and of course, taking control of your own health through your own food growth. So without further ado, I'll let tonight's entertainment play and hope you enjoy tonight's edition of Conscious Communities. As always, we look forward to hearing from anybody who wants to share their stories with us, tell us a little bit about what you're doing in your local community, or perhaps bring some interesting stuff to our attention. And those details will be available at the end of the series if anybody wants to obviously get hold of us. So hope you enjoy tonight's viewing, and yeah. Conscious Communities is talking to one of our favorite broadcasters. In fact, Lainey Liberty is the Broadcaster of the Year for 2015 here on Conscious Consumer Network. So I am absolutely thrilled and honored to have her spend some time with us today, all the way from South America, to talk a little bit about her project and how it is integrating people into the community through the education of children. Welcome, Lainey.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's such an honor to be here. And I do have to let you know we're in North America. We're in Mexico. But we usually are in South America. So you're correct there. But we're currently in Mexico getting ready for one of our temporary learning communities that we host with teenagers. So it's a perfect fit right now to talk about conscious communities.
Okay, so you actually host these little learning communities not only in South America but in Mexico as well, so it's all over the show in the area. Tell us a little bit about how you spread that out.
Yeah, so what we do is we host these learning communities. They're temporary learning communities for teenagers. And there's all these different levels of engagement that we actually facilitate. Yes, you're correct. We do it in different places in the world. And from the outside perspective, we're connecting with communities as world citizens, as growing teenagers, as we've created our own learning community. So there's like all these levels of meshing, and the concept of community coming together. So from the outside perspective, we're engaging as a global citizen. And really learning how to see the world through different worldviews, through the eyes of the people in our host country. And we're doing this as an internal, a learning community from the inside within a group of teenagers. So, there's so much we can talk about depending on which way you want to guide this conversation, but there's so many things that we can talk about.
Well, first I want to throw a really difficult one at you, because this is something that I've always wanted to know from people who are engaged in positive learning experiences, particularly something like Project World School, where kids are learning through experiential learning and through the perspectives and methodologies you've spoken about. How do you educate children to be part of a world where we are integrating with each other's cultures, and we are really part of a world where all mindsets are homogenizing into one culture, because there's so much cross-cultural references between food, clothing, languages. Even the internet is making us a global village. So how do you make children or teach children or get children comfortable with the process of this global village whilst still preserving their own individual culture?
Absolutely, and I'm glad that you sort of adjusted the question a little bit to the definition of exposing children. Well, first of all, we actually work with teenagers. We don't teach anything. We're providing opportunities to have these experiences. And because the educational philosophy that we lay our foundation of these experiences upon is a natural learning philosophy, which some call self-guided education, some call unschooling. There's all these different names. But in essence, you were right in saying it's experiential learning. So we're not teaching, we're providing an opportunity to come together and have these experiences together. Now, the thing that's really interesting about what we're doing and why we're doing this with teenagers is the biological development of a teen's brain is the absolute most profound other than any other time in their development. From 0 to 1, their brain is making all of these fabulous connections and figuring out, how they navigate, what's me, perception, and so forth. But during the teen years, the adolescent years from about 13 to 25, which is the brain development of an adolescent, that's when the brain is developing much deeper and more profound neural connections. And what that means from a processing perspective is teenagers are deciding how they fit into this world. So they've from 0 to 2, they're kind of sussing out what the world is around them. But from 13 to 25, it's really, who am I and how do I fit in this fabulous place we call the world? So it's the absolute perfect opportunity to facilitate a community experience that's based on a humanitarian, a person-to-person connection. How is it, we're going to a farm and we're staying with an indigenous family, and we're looking at how they're meeting their needs. How is it that they see the world, and what is it that they value, and how can we process that as a group as to what we saw as our foundation of, I don't know, necessity, needs, preferences, and where are the bridges, between the two worlds? How can we preserve what it is that's part of our culture and share? It's about this intercambio, this exchange of your humanity and my humanity, and both have tremendous value. And as I said, as a teenager, it gives this right opportunity to really decide what the path is going to be for the rest of their lives. If I fit into the world as part of the human race, as part of a global citizen, that is indeed creating a more peaceful planet. So that's our hope, and that's why we're so excited to do what we do and to continue doing what we do. It makes my heart sing.
Such a valuable project, and we've been very blessed to be able to follow along the way with having had you host a show on our network for the last year. One of the things that I was keen to sort of get an understanding of is, obviously you're not teaching children anything, they're experiencing things. How do you think they come away in terms of their skill or knowledge of building communities? What do you think they take away with them with that regard?
So what I've been talking about was how teens are creating sort of a more global perspective. I'd like to bring the conversation back to what we're doing internally to create community. I find the balance between the two aspects are vital to doing what we do. Through Project World School, we've developed a whole series of team building activities that really break down the sort of the people come into this with ego. I am this, I am that, I am the cool kid, I'm, whatever. And by living and working together and really creating these opportunities to team build and to, have these opportunities for each team to be a leader for a specific session, the ego comes away little by little, and it really builds on trust. I mean, we use some of the fabulous activities you can find in improv, and it's like how to work with another person, how to say yes and take what they've given you, and instead of judging it, build upon it, how to trust, how to step outside of your comfort zone. And so we do these team building stuff. Then we go out into the world and we have these fabulous, cultural experiences. And at the end of every day, we're doing a reflection. And the reflection is sometimes internal, how is it I'm processing this? Or sometimes it's an external observation. How are people in our host country processing something? So it's a whole series of activities that we're doing as a community, and this is community building at its core. Once you've gone through one of these experiences, the teens come back again and again and again. In fact, I'm sitting across from a teen who's going to be at the next 3 retreats, who's one of our former retreat goers, and she wanted to come and live with us and learn how to facilitate. Facilitation and connection from a heart level is part of being a part of a team. It's part of building a community. It's part of allowing the identity that you bring as being an element, a piece, one of the ingredients to this grand community that we're building. It's no greater than, it's no less than somebody else's identity, but there is distinct value. And this is, I mean, I love the word intercambio. In Spanish, it means exchange. I've got something to offer, which is my heart, my experiences, my world views, the lenses I'm seeing the world from. You have an equal and beautiful and wonderful, bit of ingredients, just the same. And that's also part of being an unschooling mom and following this unschooling philosophy. I'm not a teacher. I don't teach anything. I'm a facilitator. I sit and I provide space, and I allow for us to come together in that safe space. So the internal team building and community building with the world at the same time, and then layer upon the fabulous, space that the biological brain is going through at this time. We're creating a more peaceful planet. I know it.
Yeah, definitely. And something very interesting you touched on there, which is obviously these teens come in, they've got this external locus of identity and ego, and all that's got to be broken down to integrate them. This is actually something that I find not just when you're teaching or having this exploratory experience with teens that is necessary to break down, but also within working environments, within communities. The one thing that keeps people separated is their insistence on clinging to this external locus of identity and not breaking past that to reach out to other people for the fear that they might be different or threaten that identity. How do you deal with that with the teens?
Well, I can say that really hasn't been an issue. The majority of the people that come to our retreats are there because they're interested in the cultural experience, and what they get is it's much more. We couldn't just say, go out and build community. We have to do it inside first, and we have to take the steps to be vulnerable, to know that the me that I'm coming to this group with is important, but it's not more important than the you that is coming to this group, or the you that is part of the culture that we're interacting with. There's an equalizing element to everything that we're doing. I think, I've ran businesses and, of course, worked with adults all of my life, and my background is actually, working similar to yours. I worked in ad agencies and such, and I was creative director of many designers. And let me tell you, designers come with a set of egos because their design's got to be best. And, I've learned sort of the psychology of how to manage those sorts of egos and get what we want. There's a small child in each one of us that wants to be acknowledged for who we are. And yes, we want to be acknowledged as being unique, but something in our society went wrong, something that said that your uniqueness is greater than somebody else's. And there's a little bit of unlearning that has to be done there. And I think that, coming at this from what we're doing now with the teens, we don't have to overcome that huge obstacle that we would have to overcome if we were specifically working with adult communities. But hopefully there's something within the processes that we've developed, through the internal, the external, the reflection, the team building and all of that, that can be used within adult communities in order to be able to have the pride in my worldviews and allow you to have the equal pride.
Cool. I'd love to talk about some of the activities that you're engaged in as part of your experiential learning communities. What do the kids get up to?
Well, each retreat that we hold is around a specific theme based on the location. So when we went to Ecuador, it was based around marine biology. When we're up in Cusco, the Sacred Valley, and Machu Picchu, obviously we're focused on Andean mysticism, archaeology, and the traditions of weaving and the pan flute and so forth, the stuff that's there. So here in Mexico, we're going to focus actually a little bit of both. We're focused on conservation, archaeology, history, and the fabulous food, the flavors of Mexico. I said has their own big offering, and so learning experientially about the history and culture by having these experiences allows us to dive in, have the experience, contrast and compare what it is that makes us comfortable, what makes us uncomfortable, look at why we're uncomfortable, look at what's new, all of these different things. And again, I always go back to worldviews. We all see the world through our own lenses, and there's nothing to be ashamed of with that. But the question is, number one, how do those lenses get there? Do we agree with those lenses? Do we want to add new lenses? Can we adjust the lenses that we have? Some of them are based in fear. Let's take control of, I always go back to that. Whatever your question is going to end up in a conversation about worldviews, because this is the path to peace.
Yeah, I agree completely. Once these kids come back from having been in a Project World School retreat, how would they then, for example, in a practical reality, in a world which is so very different to, what you're offering with these retreats, how do they then integrate into the community to make a difference with the things that they've learned?
Well, we're hoping that they integrate into the community on many levels. First of all, we're living as community. We're cooking together. We're sharing all of the chores, the cleaning, and all of that. It really is, from a practical perspective, it's a team building exercise of just living together. We've got the external, the worldview stuff. Hopefully they'll see the world a little bit differently. And we're hoping that these sorts of engagements allow them to go into their communities and either advocate or, advocate for, either more travel or more tolerance, or even on the practical level, start forming their own communities. They realize that they have power to organize, and they actually have the ability to function and work as a community, where most of not only homeschoolers, unschoolers that are doing, they're partaking in their studies at home alone. They don't really have these community opportunities, or those in normal schools where they're among peers and they don't have the ability to self-organize or interact because they're told what they can do and how they can do it, and they don't have any freedom. To have the ability and to have had the experience to work closely for a 1 month period with 10 other people and be 100% solely responsible for their portion in that community empowers them to be able to go back and do whatever they want.
Yeah. Wow. We have such love for the work that you do, and I'm so keen to come and visit you on one of your Project World School retreats one of these days, and I tell you, I might actually just do it, but hopefully we'll be seeing you outside of the world sometime soon as well. But in the meantime, we love the work you do, and we have great respect for you and Miro and the path that you've chosen, the worldview that you hold, the facilitation that you provide, and the many beautiful people whose lives you've impacted. So thank you so much from us here at Conscious Communities, Lainey. And We love having you on our network, and of course, For the Love of Learning is a landmark show here. So for those of you who are tuned in to watch this, please make sure you check out Lainey's show, For the Love of Learning, and catch up on all to do with reorientating children in a positive way through self-directed learning, homeschooling, and of course, world schooling.
Yes, thank you so much. It's such an honor to be a part of this network. Thank you.
Thank you, Lainey. We love you too. And thank you very much for this interview. Today, Conscious Communities is talking to Candy Williams about conscious communities within her area. Candy got in touch with us with regards to various elements dealing with farming, permaculture, and organics, and how to have a lifestyle that's conducive to a better world. So we've decided to get Candy on to speak to us today, and thank you very much for getting in touch with us, Candy.
Oh, you're welcome.
So tell us a little bit about what it is you wanted to come speak to us about. You wrote to us and gave us a very interesting overview of kind of ideals that you're putting out there and that you're teaching people, and how you're kind of engaging with a more conscious lifestyle through your methodologies and environmental ethics.
Well, I got turned on to permaculture in October. It's been around since, I want to say the late 70s, but I honestly never heard of it before. And so I started looking into it, and it's just mind-blowing, the results, the real life results that people are getting from using, I want to say it's like natural systems design. It's a natural systems design science. And I was so blown away that just led me, down this journey. I'm taking an online class. It's free from the, oh God, I want to get their name right. Open Permaculture School from the Regenerative Leadership Institute. They're online. They're awesome. It's just fuel my fire. And that led to thinking about food, and how food is like the building block, one of the building blocks of life, obviously water and air. But I thought, food, if everybody had food, that would solve so many of the world's problems. And I couldn't believe that the solution could be so simple, but it really is that simple. So that led to Food for Freedom 2016. That's the movement that I want to start. It's a people-powered movement. It's just getting out the word to people that gardens in your yard, gardens in the meridians of the street, gardens, in empty lots in your apartment complex, yard, whatever. Gardens. We need gardens everywhere. We need food gardens everywhere. And honestly, that would solve not all of the world's problems, but it would solve a lot of the world's problems. Right here, right now, we can do it right now.
Yeah. So talk us through a little bit of the permaculture sciences that you've been engaged in. What have you learned that's really piqued your interest? Some of the little tips and interesting bits that they teach you.
Oh God, permaculture. Well, one of the things they're very passionate about is regenerating the soil. And I had no idea. You really don't think about the earth under your feet a lot, and we really should. There's billions of organisms in soil, billions. There's life in the soil. It's not just dirt under our feet, it's life. And getting that connection and really appreciating the life that we're given by the soil, by the plants, it really, not only does it make you feel small, but also makes you feel connected, really connected. And I think that's something that we're so lacking in the world today, is that connection. And if you can feel connected to the soil and you can feel connected to the plants, you can feel more connected to people too. And I think we're definitely in need of that these days. So just permaculture just lit, I've always loved nature anyway, but it lit a fire in me to really spread the message of permaculture and food to people because it's really simple. It's so simple and anybody can do it.
Okay, so what would you say, for example, would be the difference between traditional farming methods and permaculture? How would you describe the difference between the two?
Permaculture, first and foremost, observes nature and works in harmony with nature. So someone will permaculture is site specific. So you design for your site. So ideally, what you're doing is, they like to observe as much as possible and then design a plan for the land around their observations. So it's working with nature. So you're not imposing your will on nature, and traditional agriculture, at least the agriculture that we know now, where you spray pesticides and chemicals and till and all that, mechanized nonsense, that's complete antithesis to permaculture. Permaculture is working with nature, not trying to impose your will on nature, because that's just a lose-lose for everybody. But permaculture is a win-win for everybody, us and Earth. So,
yeah, that's a very interesting perspective to look at it as, working with nature instead of against nature, because you do ultimately we screw it up so badly that actually we kill it off and then we've got nothing to feed ourselves with. And that's a very important message, is that we actually have to start working, on every level, not just sort of, even the sort of conquer and divide mechanisms we talk about in society. We need to start working together, but that also means nature, the environment, and every aspect of how we go about our day-to-day lives, what we select in terms of food, how we select it, and making sure that if we are picking, for example, vegetables and organics, that they are at least perhaps coming from somewhere where permaculture options are being used. So, it all feeds into each other, this really working, beautifully put there, not working against nature, but working with nature. And I think that's such an important message. One of the other things I wanted to ask you about is, do they work with the sort of cycles of the months, the moon, and like, do they get into the whole permaculture, working with the energetics of the earth with many of the methodologies they embrace?
Yeah, that's biodynamic agriculture, and that they are definitely into using the astrological cycles to work with the land. And that's also, it seems to be a very powerful way of doing modern day working with the earth types of agriculture. I hate to use the word agriculture anymore because people have such a negative connotation of it, but I mean, it's the way people use the land to grow food. So permaculture embraces biodynamics, but it's not biodynamic agriculture. It's something completely different. That was a movement started by Rudolf Steiner. But the beautiful thing about permaculture is it does embrace, if it's regenerative, so that's a mouthful of a word. If it's regenerative, if it's nurturing, if it's in harmony with nature, it can be considered permaculture. Because yeah, ultimately it really is. It's a natural systems design science, and they are seeking to back up their claims. And you can go on YouTube and you can find so many permaculture videos and see what people have done with their farms, their land. It's mind-blowing. I just watched a video yesterday of this family. I think they're in Southern California. They're on 1/4 of an acre in a neighborhood. They grow, I want to say 6,000 pounds of food. It might have been 10,000 pounds of food, but it's unbelievable on 1/4 of an acre. Anybody can do it. It's in Southern California too, where there's drought. I know there's drought. I've been to Southern California. It's awful. If these people can do it, anybody can do it.
Wow. Well, what would you say, for example, for those people who don't have the luxury of, say, living on the ground, but are in apartments, say, with balconies or, only a little window with a sandbox? How do you encourage them to go about engaging in permaculture methods?
Well, what people have been doing in the cities, there's a lot of good stuff on that too. Like for New York City, for instance, people have been banding together and they've been taking over empty lots. You know, people in apartment buildings who are tired of looking at, you know, dirty cars piled up, trash. I mean, people literally are banding together and they're taking back their lots. You know, they're like, you know what, I don't look at these junky cards anymore. I don't look at this empty land just sitting there doing nothing. I'm gonna go in there, I'm gonna clean it up, and I'm gonna plant a garden. And that's what people are doing. It's totally doable. And even if that's not an option, there's always, you know, containers. You know, you can plant. There's lots of good containers out there. Plastic containers. I hate plastic, but I mean, if it's already made, it's not like you made the plastic yourself. Terracotta. I don't know. I'm sure there's many more where you can plant, you know, like right on your balcony. And you don't even necessarily need full sun. Lots of plants don't even need full sun. Some things are okay with part shade. So, I mean, that's an option too for people.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, particularly in the Northern Hemisphere where we've kind of got the sun at an oblique. So it always helps if you've got a sort of south-facing balcony, which not everybody has. So if you can have, say, some kind of food growing that is facilitated by maybe partial sun or is able to grow, you know, in a place that's a little bit shady, that's obviously very helpful. Do you know specifically of anything that falls into that category?
Oh, things that are okay with part shade. I want to say that beans. Beans are now. I don't know about growing beans in containers on balconies, but I know that if you have a garden, they can be blocked out by the shade of trees and stuff, and still be okay. That's permaculture too. They talk about plant guilds, which is, you know, you got your trees, and then so you have your upper story. And then you have like vining plants and bushes, and then your plants below that. So your fruits and your vegetables, I'm sorry. And then, you know, roots, vegetables, and then, you know, your herbs, and then your ground cover. I mean, there's a whole system, and some plants work really well together. So, it's definitely, the information is out there. I'm not by any means a permaculture expert, though. There's people way more qualified to talk about permaculture than me, but it really does seem like it's got a lot of the answers to what's going on right now. Like regenerating the land, working with the land, making the land productive for our needs, but also to help heal the land at the same time. I mean, that's a win-win.
Yeah, it sure is. And so basically people in cities and stuff, perhaps encourage them to go out and find empty lots or discarded gardens, things like that. And I suppose they get in touch with perhaps their town councils, their local municipal organizations, and see who these gardens belong to and if they're just abandoned, and if perhaps that they could go in there and put food gardens in there. I don't know. You know, I think it's different from state to state in America as much as it's different from country to country, specifically here in Europe, as to whether you can just go onto a piece of land and start, you know, farming, for example. But I do think it's a very viable option. You know, there's a lot of empty spaces that just kind of get discarded, and I think we can do so much by planting food gardens, even on our pavements. I picked up something the other day. In South Africa, for example, my mom's home had quite a large amount of pavement between the front wall and the street. And you could easily have done 2 or 3 meters of that as, you know, along the wall as whatever, you know, pumpkins and stuff, and they could have been growing food out there. But the funny thing is they had a gardener their entire lives because they had a massive, massive garden and never, ever grew food, but rather mowed the lawns and planted flowers, and which are all very pretty. And they had a landscape artist come in and cut the tree, but never planted food. And that for me is, again, how detached we become from the land, is that we, you know, choose vanity over necessity, even though the necessity can still be beautiful. You can make food gardens just look like artworks, food forests. I've seen some really lovely stuff, as you say. There's great stuff out there. So I think it's an amazing idea, actually, and really want to be encouraging people to perhaps just keep an eye out in the local neighborhood, see what's around, get in touch with your local council, see what can be done, and if perhaps you can encourage some kind of initiative like this.
Oh yeah, I agree. I mean, yeah, when you just go around and you see all the yards, just people have these massive yards that just aren't being utilized for anything. And people don't even like to mow their lawn. Come on. I've never known anyone that's like, I can't wait to mow my lawn. I mean, if you have a food garden, you don't have to mow your lawn. You don't have to think about it. I mean, you have a yard. It's just sitting there, and you have to spend money on the mowing, the lawnmower, the gas to run the lawnmower, and it's pollution. It's I don't know. It just seems ridiculous to me. So, I mean, if everybody had a food garden, and the great thing too about people, even if you have a small yard and you can't grow everything, you can only grow a few things. What a great way to build community. So It's like, okay, I'm going to grow X, Y, and Z. You get with your neighbors and you talk about your food needs and what you might want to grow. And then you can grow a couple of things. Your neighbor can grow a couple of things. A neighbor next to them can grow a couple of things. And then you have a community. And what a great way to get to know your neighbors too, because that's another thing we're not doing. It's isolation. We're isolated from the land. We're isolated from our neighbors. We're isolated, and that is why we're having the problems we're having.
Yeah.
If we would band together, and everybody can agree we need to eat. Everybody can. I don't care what religion you are. I don't care what color you are. I don't care what country you live in. I don't care. It doesn't matter what you believe. I don't care what you believe. We all have to eat. That's something we all have in common. There's our common humanity right there. We all have to live on this planet. We all have to live on this planet, regardless of what religion, what color, what nationality. That's something else we can all agree on. Already, we have common ground with everybody.
Yeah, well said. Absolutely. We all have to eat. And this is one of the ways in which we are controlled is through the poisoning of our foods, which of course dumb us down, keep us sick, which keeps us dependent on, pharmaceutically or pharmaceutical drugs, which are very profitable to the corporatocracy. And of course you feed that whole vicious cycle, which ultimately is just really damaging humanity and continues to do more and more damage to the young, the vulnerable, and I've been a big advocate of the fact that for a very long time I've been saying to people, if you eat what you grow, you will not get sick, because you can manage your own compost from, cutting salads, whatever you throw away, separate your waste, use that compost, grow organically at the very least, even in very small spaces. And well, when we get through winter here, because it's pretty damn cold in Holland, I'm going to be trying a few garden. I'm in a little tiny little studio in an apartment block, but I have got a bit of a balcony. I'm going to be putting some pots out there and giving it a bash this summer and seeing if we can grow something, anything, a few lettuce leaves, maybe some herbs and mint and bits and pieces, because I really am an advocate, even if it's just a little bit. I'm really an advocate for the fact that we have to learn to heal ourselves through our food. And one of the best way to do that is to grow it yourself and not put any pesticides on it. And then you know for sure where it is, because you've nurtured it. You don't even have to wash it, because you know that there's nothing on it.
Right.
And you can never be sure with the supermarkets, with anything, even with organic stuff. You don't know for sure what that process at that particular something has been through. And there's also a lot of examples on the internet of people pretending stuff is organic, putting an organic label on it to charge more. Huge sort of investigative pieces done about this in the grocery stores. Quite scandalous, actually. But, it's not the first time people have been ripped off. We are ripped off in every way, every day, by a very vampiric system. And one of the few ways in which we can take control of things within our own being is through the food we eat. And that can best be done by making sure that at least it's good, it's healthy. And that can best be done by growing it yourself.
It's horrifying. I'm horrified every time I go to the grocery store. by the having to read labels and knowing that the labels don't even, there's no laws. There's no labeling laws. And I know people in the United States get a lot of flack because they, you know, they say a lot of people here are asleep, and that may or may not be true, you know. Depending on what day you catch me on, I may agree or disagree with you, but 70%, over 70% of the food here in the United States is genetically modified in some way, and there's no labeling laws for it. So it's horrifying that people have to go to the grocery store and deal with this nonsense. Complete and utter nonsense. And it's unconscionable. And yeah, the only way we can ensure that what we're eating is good for us is by growing it ourselves. We have got to take back our food. And there is a huge movement growing here where people are taking back their food. There's a community garden movement. There's a local food movement. You know, people are waking up to that, at least the food part of it, you know. The other stuff, you know, I don't want to, you know, get involved with the, you know, the politics and the, you know, who may or may not be controlling the show, you know, any of that other kind of nonsense, you know, that people can shut down when you talk about that kind of stuff. But if you can talk about the food, I really think you can find common ground with people, and you don't really scare people off when you just talk about, hey, you know, wouldn't you like to eat better? Wouldn't you like to be able to know where your food is coming from? Wouldn't you like to know that your food, you're not being a guinea pig in some science experiment? Because that's what these genetically modified foods are. You're being a guinea pig in somebody's freak show science experiment. I mean, it's, and like I said, labeling, there are no labeling laws. Labels can say whatever they want. You know, and if you don't believe me, that's fine. You can go on the internet and look up all this stuff. I mean, people have done so many studies, even labels can lie. Like, you can go to the store and look for honey, and it can say it's honey, but it could be sugar water. You just don't know. If you didn't get that honey from a beekeeper, you don't know it's real honey.
That's so, you know, I'm glad you brought up the honey thing, because I don't think I'd ever eaten real honey since living in Europe until I met this one Polish girl who imported it from her uncle had a bee farm, and he sends it to her, and she gets different flavored honeys through the season, like the spring honey, this honey. And I actually didn't realize how much I had been cheated, going to the supermarket and buying my little jars of honey, thinking, okay, I'm putting honey in my tea, it's better than sugar at least. But it was not until I tasted it straight from a beekeeper in jars where it was like dripping out the sides because it's been man-closed. You're not done by a machine, you know.
Yeah.
And I tell you, it was actually minty and burny on my tongue because the enzymes were so intense. And that's when I knew I had probably never tasted real honey in Europe. But the stuff that I've been buying in the stores was not the real deal. There's such a medicinal, so much enzyme, so much in it, and it actually bursts on your tongue like something crazy when you have the real stuff. It is very distinguishable, the difference. And actually afterwards, when we sort of moved apart from them, and they went on because they were living on a boat, I actually was like, I can't believe I've got to go back to the grocery store and start buying this bad old honey again. And I actually stopped altogether buying honey because of that experience. If you cannot get it from a beekeeper, it's just not worth doing, because as you say, what are you putting in you? Is it corn syrup mixed with something else? And corn syrup's so bad for people who have things like diabetes in the wing or you know, full blown. So, you know, really we need to start, again, beekeeping is something that I'd like to start seeing more of as well. It's something I'm very fascinated by bees. I'd love to, at some stage in my life, be in a position where I can learn how to do this and have the space to keep bees and perhaps have the flowers to feed them. But I do think we need to start seeing more of it, and really a scaling down of supermarket over-branding. It's kind of like we've become desensitized to things, and everything's got to be over-processed and in lots of packaging, and, you know, complete separation and desensitization to what food is, because it's almost like we're not supposed to get our hands dirty, or
Yeah, I mean, there is a total disconnect. You go to the supermarket, you buy things out of season if you're getting the, fresh produce, if you're lucky. Most people aren't that lucky. I mean, honestly, if you think about it, it's only the outer perimeter of the aisles where you get your fresh whole foods, and then the whole entire middle of the supermarket's the processed crap. And the processed crap is cheaper because it's subsidized. The corn and the soy is subsidized, and that crap is in all the processed foods, all of them. You cannot get a processed food that doesn't have some kind of garbage in it. I mean, reading labels is like an experiment in terror.
I have to agree. And I do read absolutely everything that I pick up if it's not whole foods. And I myself eat largely raw, in terms of my husband and I have avo smoothies every morning, largely avo banana and coconut milk. And we're very, very cautious, simply because, we don't have health insurance. So we make our health insurance the way we eat. That's the way I look at it. I refuse to pay for your tax by having health insurance that I never bloody use, because I'm pretty healthy. And I haven't been to the doctor for, when was the last time? I think since I lived in London, probably, which was more than 7-8 years ago. So,
oh my God, I haven't been to the doctor in, at least 10 years. No, I wouldn't go to the doctor if you paid me. No. And I don't have health insurance either. I'm certainly not going to sign up for Obamacare. You can just forget it. It's ridiculous. The healthcare in this country too, it is a big issue. And Obamacare has done nothing but raise premiums for people. I don't know if people realize what's going on here, but it's completely not giving people choice. It's raising people's premiums to the point of ridiculous denier claim anyway. So it's not like helping anything. It's just making the cost of healthcare, which is already pretty expensive in this country, skyrocket. It's unconscionable. And Medicare is another ridiculous thing here in this country. My dad's actually on it. And I can tell you right now, old people do not have it easy in this country, okay? My dad is selling hundreds of dollars a month on his Medicare. A month. And he put into it his entire life. And the Part D, the prescription drug program, is also ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Just to prescribe people some drugs that are just going to eat your liver and end up killing you anyway. The side effects on drugs, when you'd be better off, you can heal anything with food. Food is the key to so many things. It really is. I didn't know it. I didn't realize it, but it really is the key to so many things that are wrong with the world right now.
Yeah, absolutely. If we could solve our food problems, we'd be a long way to sorting out a huge amount of things, because I think when you start looking at the statistics, I'm from South Africa, so I've seen what hunger looks like, real suffering, real poverty. And when you really, really have a look at it, and a long, hard, ugly look at it, it boggles the mind when we have all these resources available, when we have these beautiful fertile lands, and there are still loads of them available. It's not all polluted yet. Africa's some of the most fertile soil. Why are all these people hungry and starving and impoverished? And, it's just, as you say, unconscionable, and it's an imbalance and a schism in our society that absolutely has to be flipped. We have to actively work to create abundance. And even if that means we dig into the grounds with our own hands and plant things, that's what it takes. That's what we got to do.
I agree. There's just no reason for it. And we actually have more food than there are mouths to feed. We're producing an overabundance of food, but the problem is actually getting it to people, getting it to everybody. I don't get it, and it's like, that's why I'm so passionate about this and why I started Food for Freedom, because I'm making it my mission, no matter how I do it, to get out the word that one of the keys to freedom, to humanity's freedom, is food. If we can take back our food, we're going to go a long way into taking back our freedom. No one should go hungry. No one should go hungry, and no one should be having to eat the complete and utter garbage that's being peddled in our grocery stores. No one should have to eat that nonsense. No one.
Yeah, absolutely. And as everybody knows that I don't actually go shopping at a grocery store whatsoever. I actually choose a little family-run Turkish deli where they have the little olives and hummus and all that, and their little refrigerated area, and outside they have their veggies, which is where I pick like 2 or 3 different things, and it's pretty much whole. A blender is probably the most that I process my food, very little heating. In fact, I don't think I've used an oven in over a year. In the summertime, yeah, a couple of barbecues, I'll be honest. And if I do eat meat, I don't eat it more than once a week. And then it is really well selected and from somewhere that I know that, it's all good. But genuinely, I know not everybody's going to be able to do the completely raw, completely vegan or anything, which is why I've decided to do the middle ground balance with, okay, so I am a recovering meat eater, weaning myself off. I know I'll probably never be able to completely cut it out, but at least there's going to be a limitation on it in terms of how often it's going to be and in terms of where it's going to be from. But yeah. I would love to be someone, honestly, who's completely animal product free. I really want to get my life completely green and completely self-sustaining in an environment where I don't have to rely on anybody else for anything and all my food is around me. And I'm in that evolutionary process myself. So this is my own personal journey into discovering how it can be done within various limitations such as resources, space, environment, etc. And let's invite everybody along this journey, and in so doing encourage them to discover their own ways and to bring them forward. So I really appreciate that you've gone and gotten involved in this permaculture course. When was it, October last year?
Oh, no, just this year.
This year? So
no. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, October of 2015. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Almost the end of January. I know it's a new year, but yeah, it's only been a couple of months when I started taking the course. Yeah.
So are you planting yet? Have you got anything going?
No, I haven't got anything going yet. It's January here and kind of cold. I would love my goal, because this is a beginning for me too. Like I've never planted anything myself either. So this is a beginning journey for me too. I would really like to have a garden this spring, even if it's, in containers. Because right now I'm in an apartment, so it would be, a balcony garden.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a bash to the little balcony garden. I've got a few ideas about how to maximize space with little pot containers. So we'll keep in touch and share ideas, and it's try to encourage this food movement. There's actually, funny enough, in my neighborhood, a couple of gardens that you've given me an inspiration to go and see if we can't do something with, especially when the springtime comes.
Yeah, no, I mean, seriously, I'm actually inspiring myself too. And that's what it's all about too. It's like my brother, I can't take credit for this term, but he called it the circle of inspirement. You do something that you felt inspired to do, and that inspires somebody else to do something that inspires somebody else, and it's a circle of inspirement. And then what they did inspires you, and it's a beautiful thing, and that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
Too, is really, I want to walk my talk. I want to really embody my beliefs, thought, word, and deed. 100%. So that's what I'm doing.
I love it. I love it. Thank you very much. All right, Candy, that was an absolutely fantastic conversation. Thank you so much for your contribution to conscious communities. And we look forward to catching up with you and your garden, wherever it may be, in a balcony, or let's hope we all get to move into food forests one day. We'll keep in touch.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for tuning into CCN. This unique network is dedicated to free and independent media. CCN was created with the belief that information is the common heritage of all beings, which is why our live stream high-definition broadcast is easily accessible and free to view. If we want to change the world, we must first change the media. Having produced over 1,000 shows in 2015, which are all archived on YouTube, we look forward to bringing you more groundbreaking, cutting-edge information in 2016. For more information on what is on, please check out our broadcast guide for weekly updates. CCN broadcasts in multiple languages and features some key voices of our challenging times who are all in pursuit of a free, fair, just, sustainable world. CCN belongs to you, the people, and it is up to you all to keep this network on the air. Please contribute to the Network Support Fund or visit the CCN shop. We thank you all for supporting free and independent media.